The purpose of today's session is to explain what is transportation construction inspection and a little bit of management as well, or as we call it, CMCI. We hear it all the time from people who drive past our awesome projects and wonder, what are those people doing standing on the side of the road just watching the work? Well, hopefully today you'll understand a little bit better. But first, let me just introduce myself here real briefly. My name's Noel Caron. I'm a civil engineer. I've been working primarily in New York and Pennsylvania for almost 29 years. I started off as a residential laborer, then later worked with a heavy civil contractor, then a civil designer, and now for almost the last 15 years, I've been working in Erdman Anthony's construction management and construction inspection group. So what is CMCI all about in the transportation industry? Well, I'm going to tell you, and I hope you don't mind me being casual, since honestly, that's how our industry is and that's how my personality works. This is going to be a pretty fast presentation to respect everyone's time frames. But if you do have questions, go ahead and submit them in the chat. We'll do our very best to answer them today. If not, we'll make sure we follow up with you with an email or some other response. So let's get to it. I have a brief presentation that will share CI duties, the importance of the role, how to qualify, what are the approximate pay rates, and what the jobs are all about. So here's a brief presentation. And, one thing I want to make sure I clarify a few different times, just because of the way I talk. I'm pretty excited when I go over the things that we do. So don't let me confuse you today. Okay, inspectors are not doing the physical work. We are not holding shovels. We are not digging holes. We are here to observe and document that the contractor is completing the work in conformance with the contract requirements. So let's get on with the presentation here. So today we're going to figure out, is construction inspection and management right for you? And I always like to throw out there, not all of us are interested, and we're not really built that way, to be sitting at a desk in front of a computer 8 to 10 hours a day. We like the fresh air. We like to spend our personal time in the fresh air. So why not do it while we're working as well? So we get to do that, building, roads and bridges for public safety. For things. And again, we're not building, we're not the contractors, but we're helping to make sure that things are done right. So we also like to work with a lot of interesting people. So in the industry, the construction industry, it's filled with a lot of personalities. As a construction inspector, you'll be working with people from many different organizations and backgrounds, including the owner, which would usually be PennDOT or the New York State DOT, Pennsylvania Turnpike. Of course, contractors, environmental agencies, municipalities, public utilities, traveling public, and engineers. We got a lot of folks we work with here. We use really cool equipment and cool operations that we see all the time. There's always something interesting going on, just like working at your house. So if you like that kind of thing, you'd love this. But we use even cooler, even bigger equipment so big you could pick up your house and drive down the road with it. And that's what we do. We take designs and we turn them into reality on these projects. The contractor does. So, and the big thing for me, at the end of every day and eventually at the end of the project, you can feel proud of what you built. You can remember everything you did, and you will. And every time you drive past it, you'll show your friends what you did. And in 10 years, you'll show your kids what you did. In 20 years, you'll show, your grandkids what you did, and so on and so on. For me, this is the biggest thing that really motivates me. I got it my guts, the way I like to build things. And my first project I always think of out of college, I was in Virginia building a flood wall in a small town. I still drive and stop to see that flood wall now, 29 years later. The project has saved lives and protected property for all this time. And I was part of the project and helping that project come to completion. So if you like all those things, if those things sound interesting, the construction inspection or management might just be a great career for you. More to come on that front. And why is it an important role? Well, reliable infrastructure is critical to the future of Pennsylvania, New York, and the U.S., really the whole area. If, highways and bridges, that's what gets us to work. It churns our economy. It takes care of our children as we go on vacation. All of these things obviously are very, very important. And when we're out there monitoring the contractor's construction progress, we're safeguarding our clients' investment. Obviously, public funds are paying for these projects. And so, it's critical that those things are done, responsibly. What are our day-to-day duties? You get a set of construction plans as an inspector. You're studying those plans and specifications to understand what the contractor is required to do. You're monitoring the contractor's work to observe that they're following all the requirements that are in the plans and specifications. Each day you're filling out a daily report. In that daily report, you're documenting what was done and that things were done correctly. You're tracking the quantities that were completed that day. So for instance, you're working on a project where we are pouring concrete. As we're pouring concrete that day, you find that they placed, 100 yards of concrete. And at the end, if they did it all correctly, you'd be releasing out that quantity for the contractor to be paid. As you can imagine, the contractor just doesn't get $5 million on the last day of the contract. Part of your responsibility is that as you release out quantities at the end of each month, the contractor gets a paycheck to get an estimate of what you have said that has been completed correctly. Here's one of our projects I just want to share with you, just a brief video talking about one of our recent projects.
How do you keep traffic from backing up on off-ramps and extending onto a major interstate? At I-83 Exit 4 in Shrewsbury, Pennsylvania, it took a wider bridge, plus an innovative diverging diamond interchange under the new structure, all finished off by relocating a creek through a 12 by 11 foot box culvert right beneath the interchange. Challenging? You bet. But with the support of Erdman Anthony, the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation is getting it done, so everyone on these roads can have a safer day. Erdman Anthony, the community that builds communities.
That's one of the projects we just completed down in southern Pennsylvania area. So now I'm just going to take a minute and talk a little bit about what the contractors do on these projects. Just give you a sense of really how you build roadways, how you build bridges. I'm going to do this at a very high level, try not to get too deep down in the dirt here, but just talk about it because I say construction, if you find that construction is interesting to you, what you're going to find is that your days are very quick because you go to work, you see a lot of great things. It's all interesting to you. And therefore, you find that at the end of the day, you can't believe it. You can't believe that you've already worked that 8 or 10 hours that you've done there. So how do you build roads? Well, just like at your house, you build things, the contractor builds things starting at the bottom and building to the top. So you'll start off with drainage related work. So things that are underground. Okay, you got to go underground first and you take care of those things. So here's the contractor working on a sizable drainage head wall and inlet. Then once you get your drainage work taken care of and you got to come up out of the ground, you want to make sure that you're ready to place your pavement structure on good, strong soils. So to do that on this project, you can see the contractor is spreading cement on the surface, and then that large vehicle in the back, it's like a big rototiller, and it is milling up the soils, mixing the cement in, and then it rolls it out, and the soil gets pretty hard. It's a nice firm base. We do that to get you a nice strong base in a lot of projects. And then we go into our paving operations. You can see there, that's our inspector that stepped back in the back right corner. In the front of him, you will see an iPad hanging. That down in Pennsylvania, primarily, we do a lot of our documentation that way through the iPad using different apps to document the progress of work. And that's it. So coming up out of the road, once you put that pavement down, you paint some lines, put in some guide rail, put in some shoulder backup, maybe plant some grass, and you're done. Bridge jobs, similarly. The contractor has got to start at the bottom and go to the top. It really depends on how you're going to handle the traffic for the project. So if you have a project where the contractor has the traffic detoured, then you'll build the bridge, right in place, or you may be building stages of the bridge as staged construction. So the first thing we always have to do, depending on how traffic is, this is an example under detour, we are going to remove the bridge structure. The contractor is, of course, again, doing all these operations. We're there observing and documenting that the work is being performed in accordance with the contract. And they set it down on the ground, that superstructure that we call it, bring in the torches, chop up the pieces, take it off to the scrapyard, and we build more bridges. Here's another method. You can see in the background, that's the new bridge construction. In the foreground is the old bridge. So there again, however you can get the structure down safely, the contractor does that, and then they chop up that steel, they get it in the recycler, and we build, more things out of that. So here coming in, then this is a picture of a stage construction area. So, a portion of the old bridge has been removed. On the right side is, you'll see traffic is really up on top there. And where that big crane sits, that's where you are driving, you're going to be driving piles in the ground. So what you find is that, our bridges are really heavy. So when our bridges are really heavy, it just doesn't sit on dirt, right? Because it's heavy, it sinks. So you got to drive piles down on the ground. What you do is you take that big crane, it's got a big hammer in it, you pound those piles all the way down into the ground until the bottom of the piles are sitting on bedrock, right on bedrock, so that it supports it. And you do a whole bunch of those side by side, and that's designed by the engineers so that it is connected in. You end up with this. So you can see all those piles have been pounded down into the ground, all the way down into the bedrock, and that's going to support the bottom of the foundation. So then they come in, the contractor, and they put a little bit of aggregate down to stabilize their surface. They start putting these forms in around the footing area. Eventually they put in the reinforcing steel, and then voila, they use their magic concrete, which is down at the bottom there. That's a footing that was filled with concrete, and the footing portion is done. And now they start to build up as we do, bottom to top, right? And so as the contractor builds up, they start putting more forms in all of these green reinforcing bars. They're still reinforcing steel coming up. They start to wrap those into the next form portion. So here's a wing wall going into place with all the reinforcing steel. The contractor is, framing up and closing up the face of that form work. And then we get ourselves to where once it's all closed up, the contractor is pumping the concrete. You see in the background 2 concrete trucks sitting. Then there's a pump. They're pumping through that orange hose all the way down into the form work. And the contractor is filling that whole void up with concrete to get it completed to support the higher levels of the bridge. So then once that abutment is complete, you can get to the back here. This is an abutment wall. As you can see when I kick this video off, that the traffic is on the right side and left side. We're in the middle of the highway, and the contractor is swinging in the bridge beams that are going to support the bridge span. Okay, so they're swinging in those beams. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th beam that they're swinging into place. And once the beam is set where it needs to be in accordance with the contract, then we get to a place where we can put reinforcing steel into what we call our deck. So this is the deck portion. That's the place that you drive on when you cross over these streams, cross over these roads. And now here the contractor is filling that deck in with concrete, and they're vibrating it down into place. And they are coming across and smoothing it to the correct grades to make sure that it is in accordance with contracts. And once that's done, we then connect the roadway on either side of the bridge, paint the lines, again, put in some guide rail, do some more incidentals, and voila. Hopefully you have a bridge that you can rely on for 50 to 100 years. Other things that we do real briefly is to talk about materials. Our construction inspectors are out there present when the contractors are checking on the materials to make sure they are compliant. Here is one of our inspectors monitoring a concrete supplier who is testing the concrete and making cylinder test specimens. You can see he's just kind of keeping an eye on things, making sure that folks are doing everything we need to, and that the concrete is what it's supposed to be like for us to place it in our operation. We also do have environmental related aspects, as you can imagine, on our projects, because they're so large in scale. We often have things we need to work through. Stream diversions, wetlands, erosion control aspects. We work through those things on every project. Here's an example. Often when we reach our project areas, we find existing streams that are eroded and unstable, and we come in and we try to improve the conditions by reestablishing the stream. We put in, rocks in a very precise way, and the intention is that when we leave, it's in a much better condition than when we arrived. So now those are just, some different things, different projects that you may be involved with, monitoring the contractor's progress. Let's talk a little bit about qualifications. So entry level as an inspector in Pennsylvania, okay, you're in a range of $20.35 to $23.94 per hour. I have a lot more information down below on pay rates. My only point with this, because all these pay rates below is not as entry level, okay? You need more than just a college equivalency to be getting to these higher pay rates, but there's a lot of career path potential there. So there's these pay rates, plus there's also travel expenses for getting to the projects. As you can imagine, not every big project is in the backyard, so you do get reimbursed mileages in Pennsylvania. Now in New York, I would suggest generally, and the pay rates aren't quite as defined, but generally the New York pay rates are better than Pennsylvania. However, there's no reimbursable expenses, so there's a little bit of a difference there. But again, it's it's a little bit different. You just want to know all those details as you consider those projects. In Pennsylvania, the CM folks that are working, they're usually more experienced and might have engineering licensure and specialized expertise. So career opportunities forward, you can go into construction inspection management. And that's, again, as we're talking about there, becoming an inspector and then getting to be a manager. You're still out on the projects full time. You're working on these projects from the ground up. You're on all sorts of projects and you're managing staff. Construction managers, you have kind of a combination of office and field time. I always kind of call those folks our issue commandos. They're not necessarily full-time out on the projects. They come and go, and they may be covering multiple projects that way. Design professionals, that's usually if you have an engineering related degree. Those folks are in the office pretty much full-time, mainly doing solo tasks using design software, and they specialize in things like road, bridge, and environmental. I always say any experience is a good experience as you get into the transportation industry. There's a lot of opportunities, but in my opinion, after 29 years, I tried the design stuff, and I ultimately landed back in construction, which is what I love to do. A lot of job opportunities. I only put this up here again. It's just kind of giving you a flavor of a lot of the projects. These are projects that Erdman Anthony currently has. And I always like to highlight the fact that, the infrastructure is so important, as we talked about earlier, that there's a lot of funding that's flowing at this time on these projects. And, it really is a lot of great opportunities to work on, these transportation projects. So let's jump over to Erdman Anthony a little bit here. And, I put up this page a little bit, out of jest. But yeah, Erdman Anthony, we're 70 years old at this time. And we're looking good for 70 for sure. As far as benefits in these projects, we talked about pay rates and opportunities, but benefits, it's all the good stuff you like to see. It's healthcare, paid time off, 401k. And also at this time, a lot of these positions, because of the demands on opportunities, there are some signing bonuses for a lot of the positions. You can go to our career page, which I can advance to here. You can go to our career page and see all the opportunities we have posted across Pennsylvania and New York. Just a heads up, though, there's a lot of opportunities. It's springtime now, as you can imagine. So our projects are starting up. So if you're interested, I would suggest you look now. And the reason is because as you go deeper into the summertime, there's not as many opportunities because construction is starting now. And I've got listed up here myself, and then Tim Farney, he's the Pennsylvania guy, helps on CI. Frank Dehar is up in New York. Deb Thomas is our HR person that helps us in a lot of our project pursuits. We got a QR code there for you to scan, and you can see a lot of those opportunities. But I would suggest to go in and apply for one of the opportunities so we can kind of start talking a little bit, or call in any one of these folks to talk. And just to wrap up, just to wrap up one more time. So if you love fresh air, working with interesting people, and you love construction and the feeling of accomplishment that comes from building big things, transportation, construction, inspection, and management could be the perfect fit for you. So, feel free to reach out to Tim, Frank, Deb, or myself for more information or to hear more about opportunities. Feel free to reach out. We love our phone calls. So, if you're interested in more information, great, give us a call.